Do you know what silence really sounds like? Not the absence of noise, but the quiet between the words, the sigh behind the smile, the pause in someone's voice before they say, I'm fine. In a little town stitched between mountains and mist, a girl named Neva could hear what others could not. She was a collector, not of stones or stamps or secrets. She was the echo collector, and she gathered the sounds no one else noticed, the echoes of unspoken feelings. Neva was quiet, but not shy. She wore earthen skirts and always carried empty jars in her satchel. At first, the villagers thought she was odd. She didn't talk much, didn't gossip, but she listened. When people passed by, she heard what their words didn't say. I miss you, hidden in a polite good morning. Please don't leave me, tucked behind a joke. I'm proud of you, buried under years of silence. These unspoken emotions rang in her ears like distant music, and Neva gently caught them in jars. Each jar shimmered faintly, like glass humming in moonlight. One held the warm hum of longing, another a lonely violet tone of regret. Some were bittersweet, some too heavy to carry for long. At night, Neva took them home. She placed each one on shelves, lit only by candlelight. Then, using a tiny hand-crank music box, she would turn the echoes into notes. The jars would glow and sing, not words, but melodies made of feeling. A lullaby of sorrow, a waltz of hope, a broken sonata of forgiveness never said. The town of Dorwin was not cruel, just busy, distracted. People talked fast, nodded without hearing. They spoke at each other, but never with each other. Fathers worked too long. Friends grew apart. Lovers stopped noticing the sadness in each other's eyes. They stopped listening. And slowly, the emotional distance grew. Until one day, the town became quiet in the wrong way, like a song that had lost its melody. One morning, Neva walked into the town square. She placed a single jar on a bench. Inside, the echo of a father who missed his daughter but didn't know how to say it. As the sun touched the glass, the jar began to hum, not loud, just enough. The sound drifted to the father's ears, and he remembered her laughter, the bedtime stories. The last time she said, I love you. Tears welled up in his eyes, and he ran home. That night, he knocked on her door for the first time in years and simply said, I've missed you. Word spread. Neva began leaving more jars, one on the windowsill of a grieving widow, one at the bakery beside a boy who never spoke, one on the library steps where old friends used to meet. And each jar, each echo, found its way back to the one who needed to feel it again. People began pausing, listening, and when they listened, they began to speak. Honestly, not in noise, but in truth. On the longest night of the year, the town gathered at the square. Neva stood in the center with a crate of glowing jars. One by one, she opened them. The air filled with a symphony, made not from instruments, but from the emotional music of the townspeople themselves. Laughter, sorrow, apologies, memories. A chorus of unspoken hearts, finally heard. And for the first time, everyone was silent, not because they had nothing to say, but because they were listening. The next morning, Neva was gone. No note, no trail, only a single jar left behind. Inside, a melody of peace, a harmony of gratitude, and the tiniest whisper. You know how to listen now. The townspeople didn't cry. They smiled, and slowly they began to collect their own echoes, not in jars, but in conversations. We often speak without thinking and hear without truly listening. But what if just once a day we leaned in? What if we listened for the emotion behind the words, the ache behind the silence, the laughter that almost didn't make it out? What if we noticed when someone needed to be heard without having to say a thing? That's the magic Neva left behind. Not in jars, but in hearts that remembered how to connect. And in a world filled with noise, she taught us to listen for the music. Because sometimes the greatest kindness is not what you say, but what you're willing to hear.